know when we've had enough of each other.
Okay.
It's like a relationship. So let me go on over to Facebook and make sure it's live there, because I've been told things are live before and then they went nowhere. And that's embarrassing. Hold on, everybody. I'm coming back to you. If you're live on Facebook seeing this, just bear with me. Making sure that we're really live. And naturally, when I check, we are live. When I don't check, we're not live. That's how life is, you guys. Welcome, everybody at home. Whether you're watching right now or you come on a little bit later, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have your pants on. Just, we have a don't ask, don't tell policy still here. It's in effect. This whole interview started because I feel like people go to comedy shows and they have no idea who the comedians are. And they go and they come away and they go, it wasn't my cup of tea. So this is your chance at home to find out what Vincent Opper is like off stage, behind a mask, where he bears his soul and tells you all kind of things. And you go, you know what? The guy that wore the Hawaiian type shirt and said that he used to make skateboards up on Mars, you know, that guy sounded kind of interesting. Or I prefer the guy that had all the conspiracy. You hear it all here. You hear everything. So that's the whole point, is so you can connect with Vincent and say, next time I'm in Missouri, or next time I see on Facebook or Instagram where this Vincent Opper is, I'm going to go watch him live because I saw him on Comic Spot with Linda Marcus Smith. See, I want you to take my people. You're my friends, and I have a gift. And the gift is take my comedians and follow them and help their careers. That's what it's all about, okay? Cool. We're good with that. Now, the last thing I have to say before we do the interview is this. I have one sponsor. One bailed on me, but it's okay. Trust me. It was a good thing. The sponsor I still have is Will Clifton from the Veterans of Comedy. They put me in there and I'm on the website. I'm a military veteran. What can I say? So next time you want to hire somebody who actually served our country and they're now serving up jokes, you got to go to the Veterans of Comedy. And what you do is you scroll down all past those men, all that testosterone. You scroll and scroll and you and get to, oh, wait, there's Linda Marcus Smith, and you hire me. That's what you do. I can't believe Will is still sponsoring me after all this that I say. I hope you enjoyed the little intro today because I'm trying to bring it. And today's guest, our special guest today, the only guest of the day, might I add, is sitting over there in the other square being so patient. I love to draw this out because I watch their faces go from hopeful to hopeless. Fun. It's fun to play with it. Anyway, Vincent Opper is here. Yay! Let me read you the intro. He actually sent me an introduction and I get to read it. So here we go. As long as nobody sends me a text right now, it won't mess up where I'm at on the intro. Here we go. Vincent Opper, the guy in the other square who can't wait for me to shut up. Vincent Opper has been performing comedy for 6 years. Did you hear me? 6 years. What a grind. For the last 3 years, he has promoted live and online shows through the sheet won't move, through his company, Gateway Comedy Scene. That's right, Vincent Opper, Gateway Comedy Scene, the last 3 years. But what Vincent is most proud of is being the most successful comic to ever come out of Pevely, Missouri. Pronounce it for us, Vincent.
Pevely.
Peevely. I didn't want to mispronounce it. See, I didn't mess up one intro. Finally, first intro, I didn't mess up. So bring to the
You did
stage.
great.
Thank you. Welcome to the stage right now, our only guest of the day, Vincent Opper. Woo! Well, you got a lot of energy, Vincent. You're not even clapping for yourself. Are you there? Are you messing with me?
Okay, up where I'm breaking up. We are breaking up. We are breaking up like two 10-year-old kids. I mean, we have some problems going on here. You see, am I coming through?
Yeah, I'm here. I hear you. I see ya.
Okay, so if I don't answer a question, it's because I'm waiting for the lag to finish so I can hear it, okay?
You got it. How are you?
I am good. It's been a summer that I've taken a lot of time to do some personal things, and the fall has been well, it's not technically the fall, but I'm falling back into the scene and ramping up my engagements, and um, I'm just optimistic about the future.
That's fabulous. So what kind of off comedy things did you do when you stepped away lately?
Um, I This sounds weird. You mentioned my shirt earlier. My wife and I, we are cat enthusiasts, and this is my cat Tuffy, and this is my cat Bing Bong. I have another cat. Her name is Gizmo, but she's an asshole, so I don't put her on the shirt. But anyway, I do woodworking as a hobby, and I've spent the summer working on building cat habitats. They're pieces of furniture that, like an end table on the bottom, there's a little area for your cat to lay, um, scratching boards that, go against the wall, stuff like that. So I've invested time in that this summer. And the original idea was to get it off the ground as a business, but I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I've kind of gotten myself off schedule most of the summer. That and grilling meat, which is one of my hobbies too.
What was the last one?
Grilling meat.
Wow,
And
that's a hobby.
I'm sorry to all the vegans out there. I have a daughter that's vegan, but she understands that I think animals are delicious.
Totally. They are so good. And I know a lot of people are vegans and it's okay if you like meat, you like vegan, just don't judge each other. Just judge yourself. That's the main thing.
The weird thing is, my daughter, who's a vegan, really doesn't like animals a whole lot. I have no idea why she's vegan. It's not like she's like, oh gosh, I want to go out and hug chinchillas and stuff like that. She animals, big deal, but she won't eat one. So
Everybody has a lot of opinions lately. I went over to my neighbor's for breakfast and he was giving away a teacup because it was made out of metal and he didn't want any metal in his house. I'm like, good luck with that one.
yeah, just pull out all the nails and the whole house will come collapsing. But damn it, I didn't have any metal in my house.
So let's talk about young little Vincent Opper because I like to time travel. I like to go back and know who you were in your household growing up and who were you very young in school. What were you like?
Um, I was always kind of a funny kid. I tried to make my mom laugh. My parents separated when I was very small, and I was the youngest. And I was raised by my mom with my two older sisters. And I always enjoyed making people laugh, probably, to deflect the crap that goes on in life. So I was growing up and liked to make my mom laugh. And I remember once she said that I was going to be a comedian. I was like 4 years old, and I said, "Is that like a clown?" Because I had no concept of what a comedian was. She said, "Yeah, it's like a clown." So, um, but when I got into school, I was tremendously shunned. I really didn't. I don't know. I would be funny with my friends, but as far as people in general, I kind of clammed up when I went through school because of what we now call social anxiety. But back then it was just called that's a shy, weird kid. So I was a shy, weird kid growing up. But I always thought things in a funny manner. And I I started writing, and this was very personal stuff. I never shared it with anybody, but I started writing things, short stories, journaling, and stuff like that. And I would also write jokes sometimes, and that's kind of how I grew up. And I loved like my friend had a Richard Pryor album that he stole from his teenage brother. So when I was like 8 or 9, we were listening to Richard Pryor. Um, didn't understand a lot of it, but Richard Pryor, George Carlin, and then I remember the first comedian to really hit big like a rock star when I was a kid was Steve Martin, and I was totally into his stuff, and so I've always loved comedy. Growing up into my adult years, I watched all the comedy specials, and I went to a lot of comedy shows. And the strange thing is, when I got into comedy, I just kind of quit listening to a lot of other comics. I just, I don't. Someone will bring up a comic who's really hot, and I will have no idea who they are because I guess because now that I do it, it's not something that I really keep up with. It's kind of like an athlete who doesn't know a whole lot about his own sport because he's not keeping up with the trends of his sport or her sport. He's just kind of concentrating on his own thing. So that's kind of where I am.
There's pros and cons to both of those approaches because some people that are out studying all the other comics, they pick up good and bad habits, or they'll be up on stage and they might slip and say something another comic said. And then, sometimes if you don't know who all the other comics are in conversation, people might put you down, but I don't see anything wrong with either approach. Just whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you started in comedy 6 years ago, what made you decide to lose your ever-loving mind and face constant rejection for your real feelings? What made you do that?
Well, I spent 10 years as a minister in my 20s. And so I've been public speaking since I was 16, and I've always had jobs where I've done a lot of public speaking, even when I left the ministry. So um, public speaking was just something that I had become really good at. And I would throw in a joke every now and then. And sometimes I'd have people tell me after a seminar or something, "Man, you should try stand up." And yeah, but I didn't know how to try stand up, and it really wasn't something serious in my mind. And it was, I guess, about 7 years ago. I hadn't yet turned 50, and me and my wife and two other couples who went to a comedy show, and the headliner was great, and the feature was great, and then there was a host, and the jokes. And this was at a chain club. Um, I won't mention their name, but you can guess the name of it. But anyway, I when we were leaving, um, one of the topics that we were talking about as we were parting was how awful that first comic was, reading their notes and so on and so forth. And I just thought, I'm getting ready to turn 50, so maybe I'll try an open mic. By then, I just went on the internet. I found a place, did an open mic, and I had 8 friends show up, and 6 of them showed up drunk. So I was the funniest thing in the world. But my wife wasn't able to come. So about 6 months later, I decided to do it again so she could watch me. And that time I did not have 8 drunk friends there. I had just my wife there who'd heard me practice this. And she was the only person that wasn't a comic there. And nobody laughed at anything. So I thought, well, I really suck at this. But as I was leaving, the club owner said, we have a contest coming up. Do you want to enter the contest? And I really had no idea that his main purpose was to get $20 out of my pocket. I really thought, wow, he must think I'm good. So I did the contest. That was the first time I did anything with a crowd there, and I got pretty decent reaction. And it was kind of a next level for me for public speaking, because it's the first time that I'd done public speaking where the feedback is immediate. They're either laughing or they're not. And so that was kind of a rush, an adrenaline rush, to see if I could make people react, laugh, next laugh that keeps you coming back.
Yes. And so you did pretty decently, and then you were catapulted into the real comedy scene. So take us from that first time up to today. Tell me about that.
Well, I did comedy for a few years, and I did primarily at one of the clubs in the Metro St. Louis area. And I did some open mics at different places. I still had kids in the house, so I could not, and I live well south of St. Louis, so the drive and having other responsibilities, I wasn't able to do it as much as I would have liked.
Yeah.
And after a couple of years, I decided that I would start promoting shows. And one of my motives to promote shows was because where I live, there's not a whole lot of comedy going on. And I thought I could bring comedy here to the southern part of the metropolitan area. So I started promoting my own shows in, I guess, about 2018. And I was focused on the shows, and I really wasn't progressing much as a comedian. And it was like every other person who was looking for something to do. And I just started doing a lot of Zoom mics, and a lot of comedians hate the Zoom mics. And I understand that because you don't hear laughter and everything else. But I kind of looked at it as a comedy lab. I was no longer just watching local comics that I see at every open mic. I was watching comics from around the world. I was watching comics of various skill levels, very experienced. Every now and then I'd show up on a Zoom mic, and I thought, I know that guy, so, or I know that woman. So I got to see a lot of comics, and with the Zoom shows, I could see myself in real time doing comedy. And even though I'm not as animated as I would be on stage, it really did help me to fine tune some things like expression, when to do a gesture, when to use my voice flexion to highlight something. And I just became a much better comic, and I started writing much better material during the pandemic. And then when the pandemic was over, it had got to a point where I was like, I'm enjoying the performing more than the promoting, because I was just a better comic. And a lot of friends of mine didn't do anything during the pandemic, and they were really rusty those first few months of open mics. And I was getting comments, wow, you've picked up your game during the pandemic. I had nothing else to do. I might as well try to become a funny comic instead of
Yes.
just the comic. So I used it for my advantage.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your specifics inside of your comedy. So, like, one of the things that I find interesting is dragging out some information out of you, like real facts. So, like, when you go to write a joke, do you do you hear like the punchline, or are you more premise driven? How do you develop when you're writing a joke?
Repeat that. You froze for a minute, and my son was calling at the same time. So,
So
uh,
when you're writing
so
a
the phone
joke,
has quit ringing.
when you're writing a
Yes.
joke, do you just write and write and write till something comes out? Do you hear a premise in your head and build a joke around it? Do you hear a punchline and build a joke around that? How do you write a joke?
Well, first of all, I'm one of the few comics that does not write jokes. I record them into my phone because I cannot read my own handwriting. So if I'm driving or something, usually it starts with a funny concept, not necessarily a punchline, but a concept that I find funny. Like, for example, this cat, Tuffy, came to us as a stray. And when we took him to the vet, we had to get him fixed. So his testicles were taken off. And then about a year later, we find ourselves at the vet because he has a urinary tract blockage and they had to remove his penis. And I just thought that concept was so funny that, it's not just that the cat was neutered, he was really, really neutered. So I played around with that for a while. And it's not a punchline and it's just a concept. And finally the punchline hit me. I'll go ahead and say the joke, my cat Tuffy came to us as a stray, and the first thing we had to do was take him to the vet, and they had to fix him, so he had his testicles removed. And about a year later, he had a urinary tract blockage, so the vet said, what we need to do is remove his penis so he has a bigger hole to urinate out of. So this is the punchline. So I brought him home, and my daughter said, Dad, now that Tuffy doesn't have a penis or testicles, is Tuffy a boy or a girl? So obviously now Tuffy's a husband. So I kind of put together, what's something that is extremely neutered. And what came to mind was, a very kept husband. So he's a husband now. And, that doesn't reflect on my marriage, but, I just thought it was a pretty funny joke.
It
So
is.
they mostly start with concepts, and I'll say it into my phone and record it and then try to build something around it. And I don't try out material at open mics. I have material that I've written and that I've memorized, and I take that to the open mic. And because I'm a firm believer that involve you're performing, not just rotely saying your jokes or reading them off a page. That's why I work on memorizing everything. And when I get to an open mic, I want to perform the joke. So usually by the time I take it to an open mic, I'd say 80% of the time it's something that I'm going to use, but I will tweak the performance in open mics until I get it to where I want it. So I don't do the shotgun of type of writing, write 50 jokes and see which ones stick. I like to think that the concepts that I come up with are funny, and I have a pretty good gauge on if they'll get a reaction. And then by the time I take them to an open mic, I'm pretty sure about the material. I have been wrong. There's been times where I've said something that I thought was going to garner a laugh, and you hear crickets. We've all been there before, and I don't really hang on to it. I just scrap it and go on with the next, because I figure if they're not getting the concept at an open mic, and I'm not communicating it well enough at this point, maybe it's something that I can just throw away and go somewhere else.
Absolutely. So, what does your wife think about your comedy?
She likes it. She doesn't go to a whole lot of shows anymore unless there's someone else performing that she wants to see. She's very supportive, and a lot of my material that I do towards the end is about our intimate life, and she understands that there's a big difference between the husband that is at home and the guy on the stage. And I kind of put it this way, you know, comics are, they're kind of caricatures of themselves. It's not really them, but they're elements. Sometimes like when she had a friend come to the show, and afterwards she said, her friend said to her, I know it's just jokes, but by golly, I know some of that's true. And I didn't want to hear that. So she does really good with it. You know, I'll run material by her, and she's not like a heavy laugher, so she'll just yeah, okay, that's okay.
Okay, I get it. I get it totally. What is some of the best that's happened to you on stage, and the worst thing, either that you've experienced or you've seen the best and worst that's happened to other comics, without saying names of clubs or comics?
Okay. Gosh, the best thing that ever happened to me was the first time I got an applause break. And it was a bit that I had done many times before, and it was hitting this audience really hard. And they started clapping, and at least I had the wherewithal to shut up and let that happen, so I didn't, you know, ruin any setups or anything because they didn't hear. But every time I get an applause break, and it's not a whole lot, but you know, it's still like a special time for me. So I can't really think of anything specific that, you know, this was the greatest thing that happened to me on stage. But applause breaks are what I remember most. Gosh, the worst thing that happened to me on stage, geez. Uh, oh, I know. Um, this made me angry. I talk about in my bit, one of my kids is trans, and I talk a little bit about that at the beginning of my set. And I was in a small town in central Illinois. There's a hint for those of you who know where I'm talking about. And it was a packed house, and I started off saying, you know, my youngest is transitioning, and someone just blurted out sicko. And so I thought, all right, you Hoosier piece of trash. And I didn't get mad. Well, I got mad, but I channeled it into my set, and it was a really good set. But you know, I was motivated that, you know, I wasn't going to let someone's belief on that on a subject that's pretty dear to me, close to my heart. I wasn't going to let that ruin it. So I just made sure that my material, everything was sharp, and I was hitting, and that, you know, if she didn't like it, that's okay. Everybody else loved it and had a great time. But that's the thing that I've seen. I was um, doing a show at a small facility, and there was a lady who was headlining, and she's a great comic. She's only about 5'2", and there was an intoxicated man, and I don't remember what she said, but it wasn't controversial at all. And then he started rushing the stage to get her. I mean, he's like 6'4", and fortunately, a couple of people intercepted him. But you know, you never know who you're going to offend or what you're going to trigger in somebody. But you know, fortunately, no one's ever rushed a stage for me, because if they did, you know, I'm not a fighter, so probably just stand there and get crap knocked out of me, but I try not to offend. I try to be a little, you know,
Absolutely. Well,
make the
talk to
jokes
us
more
about
about me.
talk to us about your gateway comedy shows. I want to hear about that. Plug it.
Well, like I said, me and a partner, we started this, and we were bringing comedy to the outlying areas of the St. Louis metro area, and we lined up some really good venues. We had some really good talent. We had used some great headliners. Um, we have parted ways, because where I want to take Gateway Comedy scene is more towards the charitable side, where we're doing, like the last show we did last weekend. We did a fundraiser for someone who's got some medical issues. Um, for Mother's Day, I like to do this show that is a diaper drive. So people pay $2 for a ticket, and they have to bring a package of diapers. And we had over 2,000 diapers that we gave to charity. So that's kind of what I'm trying to focus on in the future. Like I said, I got into this when I was 50, and I I came into this with a pretty good head on my shoulders. I didn't think I need to get a Netflix special and all this other stuff. I've developed this. I've got a little bit of a following. What can I do, that would really, make me feel more fulfilled? And doing the more charitable stuff is what I mostly enjoy doing. When the shows are for profit and we're trying to balance flying someone in, and usually we have two different venues, and there's the hotel thing, and then there's times when comics can be prima donnas, so sometimes you have to deal with that with headliners. I just kind of got burned out on that, and so I enjoy the doing the charity stuff and the fundraising stuff. That's kind of more up my alley these days.
Got it. That's awesome. So, what is it that you want to accomplish the rest of your life in and out of comedy? So, that's a two-part question.
In comedy, I I don't know if I really have a goal anymore. I've kind of reached the goals I've wanted to, and now I'm just kind of enjoying it. Um, there's a there's in my dream of dreams, yeah, I'd like to do a great venue, and stuff like that. But if that doesn't happen, which doesn't happen to very many comics, I'm perfectly happy with where, if I couldn't do comic tomorrow, I would be very happy with what I've accomplished so far. But I do want to continue to do shows where I raise funds for worthy causes. I like getting booked by other comics. I like getting booked by other promoters. I like getting booked by clubs. So it's not like a deal where I'm just promoting. I still like to go out and do shows. Um, so as long as I can keep doing that, I'm very fulfilled. As far as myself, what goals do I have for the rest of my life? Golly, just I hope my cats live forever, because every time I have a cat that I get attached to, they eventually die. So um, I think you know eventually one day retire. We've got a nice little spread here, and got the deck in the back, and got the little garden we sit in. So I'm pretty happy. So I guess retirement, and live to a ripe old age. I'm fortunate. I've got 5 kids, and unless they're lying to me, my 5 kids really love me. So I really have a great relationship with my kids, and that fulfills me more than anything, being with the family and doing family stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you have coming up? And then after that, when you get done filling us in on where you'll be performing, please tell us where people can follow you on the social media.
Okay. As far as performing goes, I am just after the summer when I wasn't doing much with, I did one show I featured at a club north of Springfield, Illinois, and that was all I did during the summer. I did promote one show, but I didn't perform on it. But other than that, I just kind of stayed away from comedy. So I'm just stepping back in. So I'm starting to do the networking and, contacting some venues, some people I work with, let them know, hey, I'm back in the game, so on and so forth. So right now it's just open mics where I'm doing my networking and stuff like that. But as far as Gateway Comedy Scene, we don't have anything going on right now, and I'm trying to line some things up, over the next few months with that, and then secure some bookings. I'm terrible at social media except for Facebook. So if you want to follow me on Facebook, it's Vincent Opper, and that's the best way to follow me. I've tried Twitter and other social media things, but I guess at my age, I'm that old man who doesn't like technology that much. Facebook, I'm fine with. Everything else seems like a drag.
So is there any joke you want to perform for people to get a little snippet of your comedy styling? Or do you prefer they find you out at a club?
Uh, and I did a joke about this cat Tuffy. I'll do joke about Bing Bong. And like I said, I got a third cat, Gizmo, who gets no stage time because she's an asshole. Okay. I have a condition that my doctor calls morning insomnia. I have no problem falling asleep, but when I wake up like past 2 in the morning, I can't fall back asleep. And I've been like this for 40 years and I've tried different things. And so I have a routine. I will fall asleep and I'll be sleeping, and somewhere between 2 and 2:30 in the morning, uh, bing bong, bing bong, sorry to, he will get on my nightstand and he'll start moving things around to wake me up because he wants to go outside. So what I usually do, I will get up, I will go to the bathroom and I'll open the door and I'll let Bing Bong off the back porch. Well, I can't fall back asleep. So my doctor said, what you need to do is you need to start taking 10 milligrams of edibles before you go to bed. You will wake up when the cat wants to go outside. You can go to the bathroom, let the cat out, but I promise you, you will fall back asleep. So the first night I took the edible, and about 2 o'clock, Bing Bong starts messing with things on the nightstand. So I get up, I go to the bathroom, I flush Bing Bong down the toilet, and then I go piss off the back deck. So that's my joke about Bing Bong.
I like that. So people listen, he's telling you he's humble, he's practical, he's a family man. He's not puffed up and arrogant like some people you see. Just get out and support him on Facebook. You heard his name. It's Vincent Opper, Opper. He's in the Missouri area. Next time you're out in Missouri or you're traveling through, stop and find him and tell him, get up on stage. That's how, he could use more
Yes.
people.
Come to my house, knock on my door, and I will take you to the back deck and I will perform just for you.
Wow. Did you hear that? You got to look up where Peevely, Missouri is. Yeah,
Yes.
go there. That's it. You guys, you've been awesome to watch. I know Dan Mackey and a couple of people have been on here watching. Nobody asked any questions that I saw. So thank you guys at home for watching. Michael Harris, Dan Mackey, and Dwayne McMullen were watching. Thank you, everybody, for watching. More people will watch it later on. Don't you worry, Vincent. They'll watch it. They come on after the fact. So I thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on.
it's
What?
go ahead.
Is there anything you want to say or ask before you
Go
leave?
ahead.
Is there anything you want to say or ask before we're done?
I'm good.
He's just easygoing. That's how he takes his whole life. I like this guy. I'm tired of all the divas, aren't you folks? Yeah, that's right. Support Vincent Opper. Thank you, Vincent, for coming on, sharing your life.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on
You bet.
anytime.
Next time I go through Missouri, I'm coming to your backyard.
There you go.
Say hello to your wife and children.
Certainly will. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.